Welcome to the Tips for Lawyers podcast. This is Chris Hargraves from tipsforlawyers.com, and this is episode number 55. As always, you can find the show notes for the podcast at tipsforlawyers.com/podcast/55. And today we are continuing on in our Real Lawyers series. So far I have done a couple of episodes, so if you haven't checked them out, head over to tipsforlawyers.com/iTunes, where you will get the full iTunes listing. And if you haven't subscribed, then please subscribe and leave a review, because those things help us out and keep us in the visibility list in what's hot and things like that for people who actually care about that kind of thing. And I am one of them, so I'd be grateful if you would deal with that. Today we're going to have a look at self-awareness, because in my humble opinion, real lawyers are self-aware. What do I mean really by self-awareness? Now, of course, self-awareness is a fairly easy to understand phrase. I don't want to get into too much mumbo-jumbo here, but the reality is you need to know about yourself. You need to know your strengths. You need to know your weaknesses. But why? Why does it actually matter? Because certainly a certain amount of bravado is associated with legal practice, and for those who manage to bluff their way through the system, then perhaps you have experienced that. If you've watched too many episodes of Suits, then you've probably seen it in there as well. But you need to be self-aware in the real world. You need to know what you are good at and what you are not. So today I'm going to run through some of the bad things that can happen in relation to a lack of self-awareness, just to highlight the genuine need for you to have that level of introspection required to be an effective practitioner. And the first thing that really a lack of self-awareness leads to is an overinflated sense of ego. You are going to have a cripplingly skewed view of your own abilities as a lawyer if you are not self-aware. If you cannot legitimately sit down and say, no, that is not something that I am the most skilled person at, instead I should be using person X, then you are not going to get very far in practice, and things are going to go horribly wrong. I've spoken about authenticity and I've spoken about drawing the line, but ego is a huge problem amongst lawyers. There are plenty of people who think that the only opinion that matters is their own, that the only skill set that matters is their own, and that they can do anything that they turn their mind to, and that is simply not correct. There are some things that you will be good at. There are some things that you will be less good at. There are some things that you will be terrible at. Ego is a huge problem in the legal industry amongst lawyers, and I would encourage you to defeat that with a healthy dose of self-awareness. The second thing, and it flows on from ego, that it leads to is mistakes. If you are not self-aware enough to know your strengths or weaknesses in a meaningful way, then you are going to make mistakes, because you're going to get yourself into situations that you don't truly understand. You are going to make promises to people that you cannot keep, and you are going to, unfortunately, have issues associated with taking on those responsibilities that you can't really genuinely fulfill. So you are going to make mistakes if you're not self-aware about what you're good at and what you are not good at. The next thing that's going to happen as you become more senior in particular is that you are going to be very poor at delegation. If you think that you are the only one who can do a particular role because your self-awareness is so grim that you are unable to see that perhaps someone else is better suited, or that perhaps someone else is better leveraged in order to perform a particular task, then you are going to be a poor delegator, and that is going to affect productivity, and it's going to affect profitability, because people who hoard things are generally those people who think that they are the best at everything. Whereas the reality is you need to start to adjust your skill set and be self-aware enough to say that I am not the best person to be doing this job. Sure, I'm good at it. Sure, I could get it done. But perhaps there's someone better, not in the skilled department, not in the expertise or the experience department, but in the appropriateness department. And a lack of self-awareness will lead you down the garden path in terms of delegation, because you'll think you can do things better, faster, and more efficiently than what you actually can. And so you will make that poor delegation decision. Aligned with that is, of course, a series of bad decisions. You are going to make bad decisions if you cannot be self-aware, because you are going to decline to ask people for help when you need it. If you are not aware of the things that you are weak at, you are not aware of the areas that you do not have much expertise, then you are going to make bad decisions. probably on a daily basis, to be perfectly honest. So the lawyers who tell you that they are a one-stop shop for everything, they are not correct. They cannot possibly be. They are not experts at everything. They might have a general practice, and that's fine. I have no issues with a general practitioner, but they are going to make bad decisions if they can't have a good idea of what they are and are not good at. All these things, of course, are in fact just poor leadership skills, and often you see it amongst senior practitioners, but you often also see it in the more junior practitioners coming through the ranks. They think that they have a lot more to bring to the table than what they actually do. Now, I'm not saying you're not allowed to be good at things, and I'm not saying that you have to have an underinflated sense of what you're good at, but you need to be aware of what you're good at. You need to be aware of what you can do in what time, at what level of profitability, and then you need to go from there. So the easiest way to do this is to have a little bit of reflection on what has gone well and what is not in your own life. Have a look at what it is that you do well and be genuinely honest with yourself. Develop that sense of self-awareness and be critical of your own abilities as often as humanly possible. And if you have the opportunity, I think you should ask someone and give them permission to give you a list of things that perhaps you're not as good at as you think you are, and perhaps a list of things that you are also quite good at, because that will give you the opportunity to play to your strengths. And ultimately, that is what healthy self-awareness allows you to do. So, real lawyers are self-aware. I think it's critically important. I've listed out a few reasons there, but I don't need to wax lyrical too much about it. I think you get the point by now. This has been the Tips for Lawyers podcast, episode number 55. Head over to iTunes and leave a review. I appreciate your time, and I will see you next time.